Hello, everyone. Welcome to SWT English Learning. I'm so happy you're here with me today, because in this lesson, we'll explore two powerful tenses, the past simple and the present perfect, but not in a boring grammar book way. I'll tell you stories from my own life, filled with lessons, mistakes, and experiences that shaped who I am today. As you listen, you'll not only learn grammar, but also feel how these tenses naturally live inside real stories. Let's begin with something we all can relate to: work. Everyone starts somewhere. For me, that beginning wasn't glamorous or impressive. My first job was at a small bookstore, tucked in a quiet street corner. The shelves were dusty, the pay was small, but the experience was huge. I arranged books, greeted customers, and learned how to deal with all kinds of people: the kind, the impatient, and the confused. I remember one man who came every weekend. He never bought anything. He just read a few pages and left. Back then, I didn't understand why, but now I realize he simply loved being surrounded by stories. I worked there for almost a year, and that job gave me something no university degree ever could: patience. After finishing my studies, I wanted something more challenging. I went through countless interviews, faced rejection after rejection, but I never gave up. Eventually, I found my path in education. I became an English instructor. My first class? A complete mess. I forgot my notes, my students looked confused, and my hands were shaking. But I didn't run away. I showed up again the next day, and the next, and slowly I found my rhythm. With time, I became not just a teacher, I became a learner of people. Every student I met taught me something. Some of them struggled with fear. Others struggled with grammar. But all of them shared one thing: the courage to keep learning. And that's something I've always admired. Over the years, I've worked in different places, from small institutes to international centers. I've guided professionals, teenagers, even senior citizens who wanted to finally learn English after retirement. I've created lesson plans from scratch, started speaking clubs, and organized weekend workshops. Through all this, I've discovered that teaching is not only about language, it's about connection. It's about helping people find their voice. These experiences have shaped me deeply. I've learned how powerful a few kind words can be. I've seen shy students transform into confident communicators. And I've realized that when we teach, we learn twice: once for ourselves and once for others. I can honestly say that teaching has been one of the most rewarding journeys of my life. I've received messages from people I taught years ago. Some of them say, "Your lessons helped me get my dream job." Others say, "Now I can talk with confidence in meetings." Those words always make me smile, because they remind me why I started. Now, when I look back, I use past simple to describe all those completed experiences. I worked at a bookstore. I taught in different schools. I organized speaking sessions. Those actions are finished. They happened in the past, at clear times. But when I want to express what I have achieved or experienced up to now, I use present perfect. I have guided hundreds of learners. I have learned from every student. I have become a more patient person. Do you feel the difference? One tense looks back. The other connects the past to this very moment. Now, let's move on to another big part of my life: travel. Travel has always been my classroom without walls. The first time I left my home country, I didn't even know what to expect. It wasn't a fancy trip. It was a short visit to a nearby country, but to me, it felt like a great adventure. I took a long bus ride, stayed in a small hostel, and spent most of my time walking through streets I couldn't pronounce. Everything felt new: the language, the smells, the people's smiles. That trip changed me. It taught me curiosity and courage. After that, I promised myself that every year I would visit at least one new place. And I've kept that promise for many years. I've watched fireworks above a city skyline I never dreamed of visiting. I've eaten strange dishes in street markets where no one spoke English. I've gotten lost and found help from strangers who didn't even know my name. And from all these experiences, I've learned how small the world feels when you meet it with an open heart. I remember one evening standing on a quiet hill in northern Europe. It was cold, and the sky suddenly came alive with green lights. The northern lights. For a few moments, I forgot everything else. It was pure magic. Moments like these remind us that life is full of stories waiting to be lived. Travel hasn't always been easy. I've missed flights, lost luggage, and even spent a night sleeping on a train station bench. But I wouldn't change a thing, because every mistake taught me something. I learned patience when plans failed. I learned gratitude when strangers helped. And I learned that sometimes the best parts of travel aren't in the guidebook. They happen when we least expect them. Until now, I've visited more than 20 countries. I've taken photographs of sunrises, tasted dishes I can't even name, and collected memories far more valuable than souvenirs. Each journey has added a new color to my life. So when I talk about travel, I use both tenses again. I visited Italy 3 years ago. I stayed in a family-run guest house. But I have visited many countries in my life. I have met people who changed how I see the world. That's the beauty of learning these tenses. They allow you to share your story clearly, beautifully, and meaningfully. And that's why we practice them here at SWT English Learning, not just to memorize rules, but to bring your real stories to life.
Health is another story in my life that completely transformed who I am. When I was younger, I didn't think much about health. I believed energy was unlimited. I could eat whatever I wanted, sleep whenever I wished, and still feel fine the next morning. I remember those nights when I stayed awake watching movies until sunrise, and the next day I felt like a zombie at work. I drank too many sugary drinks and thought exercise was something only athletes did. But life has a funny way of teaching us. One morning, I looked in the mirror and realized I wasn't feeling alive anymore. I was just existing. That moment became my turning point. I decided to make a change. The first step was simple but powerful. I started walking every morning. It wasn't easy at first. I got tired quickly, and sometimes I wanted to quit. But one morning led to another, and soon I was running. I remember my first 5-kilometer run. I was sweating, gasping for air, but smiling like a child. That feeling of achievement became addictive. After a few months, I joined a gym. I learned how to train properly. I stopped eating junk food every day. I cooked at home more often, grilled chicken, vegetable soups, smoothies full of fruit and oats. Slowly, I began to feel the difference. My energy returned, my focus improved, and even my mood changed. Since then, I've built a lifestyle around movement and balance. I've run many races, I've climbed mountains, and I've swum in open seas. I've also learned something very important. Health isn't only about muscles or diet. It's also about peace of mind. So I started paying attention to my mental health too. Every morning, before touching my phone, I take a few minutes to breathe deeply and sit in silence. Some people call it meditation, but I call it my reset button. Those few quiet moments remind me to slow down, to appreciate the present. I've read many books about self-discipline and well-being. I've listened to podcasts that changed my way of thinking. I've realized that mental and physical health are like two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. Of course, I'm not perfect. There were weeks when I skipped workouts. There were nights when I ate too much chocolate. But I've learned to forgive myself for small mistakes. Progress is not about being perfect every day. It's about staying consistent most of the time. Health, like language learning, is a long journey. You don't see results overnight, but one day you look back and say, wow, I've come a long way. Now, let's move into another part of life that keeps our hearts alive: hobbies and passions. I've always believed that hobbies are not just for fun, they are medicine for the soul. When I was a teenager, I discovered music. A friend of mine lent me a secondhand keyboard, and I fell in love with it instantly. I spent hours pressing random keys, trying to play songs by ear. The sounds were terrible at first, but my excitement was bigger than my skill. After some time, I joined a small group of friends, and we started making music together. We performed at school events, and even though we weren't great, we enjoyed every second. As I grew older, I tried many creative hobbies. I painted city skylines, built small wooden crafts, and learned how to take good photos. Each hobby taught me something new: patience, focus, and the joy of creation. In recent years, I've returned to photography seriously. I carry my camera everywhere I go. I have taken pictures of busy streets, calm beaches, and smiling faces from different countries. Every photo reminds me of a moment I want to keep forever. I've also developed a love of cooking. It started during a trip to Malaysia, where I tasted dishes full of flavor and color. When I came back home, I experimented in my kitchen. I burned some meals, ruined a few recipes, but little by little, I learned the art of taste. Now I have cooked hundreds of dishes, from spicy noodles to creamy pasta. Cooking has become my therapy, my art, and my expression of love. I've also tried activities that didn't go as planned. I joined a painting class once, but quit after a month because I didn't feel inspired. I bought a skateboard thinking I'd learn quickly. I fell 3 times on the first day and sold it the next week. But even those short experiences taught me something valuable: that trying matters more than succeeding. Through all these hobbies, I've learned to appreciate curiosity. You never know what will light a spark in you until you try. And that's exactly what I tell my students at SWT English Learning. Don't be afraid to try new things, whether it's a hobby, a new language, or a different skill. Every effort, no matter how small, adds value to your story. When I look at my life now, I can clearly see how these 2 tenses, past simple and present perfect, help me tell it beautifully. I started unhealthy, I changed my habits, I joined the gym, but I have become stronger. I have built consistency. I have learned balance. The first part tells what happened. The second connects it to who I am today. Grammar is not just a rule. It's the way we express growth.
When I look back at my journey, I see how every experience has shaped my character. Some moments were full of joy, others full of challenge, but each one became a teacher in disguise. Life, after all, has its own classroom, and we are all lifelong students. I remember one difficult phase in my 20s. I had just lost a job I really loved. At that time, it felt like the end of the world. I was confused, worried, and unsure about my future. For a few months, I didn't know what to do. I spent my days scrolling through job ads and sending applications that no one answered. But looking back, that period taught me more than any success ever could. It taught me resilience. It taught me how to stay patient when life doesn't go as planned. And eventually, it led me to new opportunities that I would have never found otherwise. Since then, I've experienced many ups and downs. I've celebrated small victories and faced unexpected failures. I've learned to see failure not as an ending, but as a beginning of something new. There's a beautiful truth I've discovered over time. The past is your teacher, and the present is your chance to use what you've learned. For example, I once gave a presentation that went terribly wrong. I forgot half what I wanted to say, and my audience looked lost. At that moment, I wanted to disappear. But later, I reviewed what went wrong, analyzed my mistakes, and prepared better next time. Now I have given dozens of talks and workshops confidently. That one embarrassing moment became the root of my confidence today. I've seen this pattern repeat again and again. Mistakes in the past often create wisdom for the future. So, when I teach my students about English tenses, I remind them, don't just study the rule, feel the story behind it. Past simple tells you what happened. Present perfect tells you what it means to you now. Let me give you some examples from everyday life. Think about friendships. Maybe you met your best friend in school. That's past simple. It's a clear event that happened long ago. But when you say, I have known my best friend for 10 years, you're showing that the friendship continues to this day. See how language connects memory to the present moment? Or take learning itself. You might say, I studied English in college. That's past. The action is finished. But when you say, I have studied English for many years, it means your learning journey is still part of your life today. That's the beauty of the present perfect. It keeps the past alive inside the present moment. And let's be honest, every one of us has moments we'd like to change. I made silly decisions. I trusted the wrong people. I wasted time worrying about things that never happened. But through those mistakes, I have grown. I have become wiser and calmer. I have realized that every wrong turn still leads us closer to where we're meant to be. One of the best lessons life has taught me is that growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens when we fall, reflect, and rise again. I used to believe that success meant reaching a destination, but now I have learned that success is the journey itself, the courage to keep moving, learning, and improving. Let me share another small but meaningful story. A few years ago, I decided to learn how to surf during a trip to Bali. It looked easy when others did it, but when I tried, I fell every single time. The waves pushed me down, and I swallowed more seawater than I can admit. But I didn't give up. After 2 days, I stood on the board for the first time. It only lasted 5 seconds, but it felt like flying. Since then, I have practiced many sports, but that one moment of standing on the surfboard has stayed in my memory. It reminds me that persistence is more powerful than talent. The same rule applies to language learning. Maybe you tried to speak English and made mistakes. Maybe someone laughed and you felt embarrassed. But remember, every mistake is proof that you're learning. And one day, you'll surprise yourself when words flow naturally, easily, confidently. That's why at SWT English Learning, I always say, fluency isn't perfection, it's progress. It's the courage to keep speaking even when you're unsure. I have seen many students start shy and finish confident. I have watched people go from whispering one sentence to giving full presentations. And I have realized that nothing is more powerful than belief in yourself. The difference between I can't and I can is often just one more try. Every person's story is made of small victories like these. You don't need to climb Mount Everest to feel proud. Sometimes waking up early, eating healthy, or learning 5 new English words is enough to change your day and slowly your life. So if you failed yesterday, don't worry. You have learned something new about yourself. Use that knowledge today. Language learning, health, travel, relationships, they all teach the same truth. What we did builds what we have become. And that's what makes these tenses so special. They allow us to tell our story with depth, emotion, and connection. When you reach this point in mastering English tenses, you begin to feel time instead of memorizing it. You stop thinking about rules and you start speaking from instinct. That's the secret of fluent speakers. They don't translate, they visualize. Picture yourself standing on a timeline. Behind you stretches everything you've done, and ahead of you lies everything you'll do. The past simple helps you mark the steps you've already taken. The present perfect shows the footprints that are still fresh, still connected to where you stand. Let's test that feeling with a few natural moments from daily life. You're at a cafe with a friend. You say, "I met the owner last week." The meeting is finished, the time is closed, past simple. But then you add, "I've met him before." Now you're talking about your experience in general, present perfect. Both sentences are correct, but they tell two different stories. Or think about job interviews. When someone asks, "Have you ever worked with international teams?" They want to know about your experience, not the date. But when you describe your last position, "I worked at a software company in Dubai in 2021, you use past simple, because that job is a completed chapter of your life. Here's another common moment, talking about food. You tell your friend, "I've never tried Ethiopian coffee." You're sharing an experience you don't have yet. But later that day, you finally taste it and smile, "I tried Ethiopian coffee today. It was amazing." Time finished, memory created, past simple again. That's how naturally these tenses switch in real conversations. To master them, the best thing you can do is practice with your own life. Forget textbook examples. Make it personal. Say to yourself, "I visited Lahore last winter." "I've visited Lahore many times." Feel the difference. One is a story that ended. The other is a connection that continues. And here's a secret technique that teachers rarely tell you. Whenever you're unsure which tense to use, ask yourself, "Is this event still important or connected to now?" If yes, use present perfect. If not, use past simple. It's that simple and that powerful. English becomes easier when you stop chasing perfection and start chasing connection. You're not just learning verbs, you're learning how to express time, memory, and meaning. That's what SWT English Learning focuses on, helping you speak English that feels alive, that moves, that tells your story clearly and confidently. So from now on, don't be afraid of mixing tenses. Notice how native speakers use them in movies, interviews, or everyday talk. Write a few sentences about your own day using both. Example, "I woke up early today." "I've already finished my workout." Two tenses, one timeline, and that's real English in action. And before we wrap up, remember this. Grammar isn't your enemy, it's the rhythm of communication. Once you feel the beat, past simple, marking the steps you took, present perfect, keeping you connected to now, your English will sound natural, confident, and alive. You have learned a lot today. You understood how these tenses live side by side. You have taken one more big step toward fluency. So keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep watching SWT English Learning, where every lesson helps you build real-world confidence, one word at a time. Thank you for being here, my friends. See you soon. And remember, you have started your journey toward fluent English, and it's only getting better from here.